Humanity is built or destroyed by the stories that we tell, the stories that we seek, and the stories that we are told. What connects the past, the present, and the future is but a narrative, and the one who writes it wields the power to shape our thinking. Of all the narratives that we have written, of all the stories that we have shared, government and government-controlled media have always had the biggest influence in shaping our ideologies and perspectives, and through them, our realities. But the one in control of the narrative may not always have what is best in mind for humanity. History has proven time and time again that the narratives portrayed by government often don't unite, but rather divide. Which is why, in a time such as ours, with the advancement of technology and social media, it is not only the government's duty, but ours, as citizens of nations and of citizens of the world, to share stories that not only inspire humanity, but help shape our realities and perspectives positively. When the war in Germany took place, Hitler portrayed the Jews to be a race that ought to be wiped off the face of earth. In short, he brainwashed an entire nation into believing that the Jews didn't deserve to be treated as humans. But that narrative does not ring true with the likes of Anne Frank, a simple child who wanted to live life and exploit as any child would. Nor does the narrative of Germans being brutal and anti-Jewish ring true with the likes of those who protected them by taking them into hiding. Governments also use narratives to exploit humanity for their own political agendas. When the sovereign of Belgium subjected the people of Congo to brutal slavery, he portrayed the Congolese to be nothing but mere slaves. And it was a simple British shipping clerk that brought to light the ill treatment and inspired people all across England and Europe to stand up for what was right. The people of England and Europe were not fighting for the rights of the people of their nation, but another. In Sri Lanka, when the civil war broke out, the Sinhalese believed the Tamils to be bloodthirsty murderers, and the Tamils believed the Sinhalese to be the same. But that story does not ring true for the many who found love and companionship for those within the other ethnicity. Similarly, in each of the wars across the world, as much as we believe that each side has its own evil, maybe there's good in each side as well. With technology and social media in our time, it is often very easy to see just one side of the story. But it is also so much easier than it ever was before to share stories that aren't just black or white, but maybe a little gray. You see, relations between nations are far too important to be left to the governments alone, because a comprehensive view of the world and its issues cannot be portrayed by the governments alone. It is a collective effort. Relations between nations belong not only to the governments, but to each and every single one of us, with the stories that we hold and the stories that we have to share. As children, as Chesterton tells us, stories to us are more than true. Not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. In a time as dark as ours, socially, emotionally, financially, and politically, prevailing hope and the belief of a pure and just world is far too important to be left to the governments alone. The creation of an equitable planet that you and I call home rests in the hands of each and every single one of us. The tools gifted to us in our time may have the power to do evil, but it also has the immense power to do good and shape our realities for the better. We must let hope prevail through the narratives we share. For it is the stories that we share that help build the future. We are the stories we tell. We are the stories that we become.
Thank you, Shaakya. For the final time, I open up these speeches to the floor. Is there anyone who would like to ask Shaakya a question? Yes, Sophia.
Thank you so much for your really inspiring speech. I'd just like to ask you if you think that sharing stories is the best way to fight worldwide discrimination, for example, and if so, how can people get the stories across in the best way, especially for those who may not have the opportunity to do what we're doing right now?
Thank you for your question, and that is indeed a lovely question. Let me tackle the first part of your question about whether social media and stories would be the best way to tackle problems like discrimination. I certainly do think that stories hold immense power, because at the end of the day, the stories that each and every one of us have heard or share, or the stories that we carry with us, is eventually what creates us as human beings as well. It leaves an imprint on us. And at the same time, when it comes to stories of discrimination, I think a wonderful way, and certainly not the only way, but one wonderful way is to share stories. Because the more the world sees stories of equality, of people not discriminating each other based on caste, creed, gender, or religion, the more we begin to realize that there is a possibility to live in a world that is equitable for each and every single one of us. So indeed, stories are a wonderful way to bring people together to realize that there is the ability to live in a world that is equitable. To answer your second question on how we can do that, and especially for those of us who don't have the prestigious platform that we have been given here today, there are multiple ways to do that. Because when it comes to social media, it is so diverse and so beautiful that we can each use it as a platform to share our stories. And that doesn't have to involve coming here today to be able to share a speech. Even writing a simple blog that you share on your social media can be such a profound and wonderful way to share your stories, to bring hope, to inspire hope, and to make a difference. So I think it's often the little things that we may not really think of, but the little things that we do that can certainly go a long way. And I truly do believe that stories are a powerful and wonderful tool to do so.
Are there any further questions, perhaps? I believe I saw some hands in the center. Yes, I think just in the middle there.
Thank you. You talked about bringing all stakeholders together on one platform, that is government, academia, corporate sector, private sector, public sector. Do you think globally it is the same situation to bring all stakeholders together? Do you think, is it the same situation?
Thank you very much for your question. And I think the world that we live in today, I think it would be fair to say that we have seen some of the worst of what the world can be, given the wars that are taking place in the world, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic that we are still going through, but have fortunately come into a better place. When it comes to stakeholders and bringing all of it together, there is an individual perspective that needs to come to it. We're not just talking about governments or the private sector or schools or institutes of education alone. We're talking about each and every single one of us as an individual doing it. And though globally we have not reached that position yet, and even though it may seem like it is a picture of idealism, it does not mean that the fact that the reality that we live in is not ideal should never mean that we don't strive to make it our ideal reality. So that being said, I do believe if each and every one of us use our voice and use the platforms that we have and the opportunities that we do have presented here and today, we can certainly strive to make that world that we think is so ideal an ideal one someday. Maybe not now, but certainly in the future to come.